A sizable group of questions in logical reasoning will require us to engage in a slightly higher level of reading. These questions will ask us to understand what we've read, discern the structure of the argument we read, and also determine why that argument is flawed. The last step will require us to engage our critical reading skills. On logical reasoning, about 52% of the questions require us to exercise our critical reading skills. In short, critical reading is a big part of this test. It's also a big concept to discuss, but there is one element of critical reading that we can discuss today. It's a relatively straightforward concept. As we read arguments in logical reasoning, we should keep an eye out for any quote-unquote strong statements. I'm putting huge quotes around the word strong because if I'm not careful, I might give you the wrong idea about what I mean when I say strong. By strong statements, I'm referring to statements with a lot of propositional power or force. But now it sounds like I'm talking about magical crystals or something. So let's use a different word to describe these statements. At LSATMax, we'll name these statements after the most powerful judicial body in the US. We'll call these words SCOTUS claims. In the real world, SCOTUS is an acronym for the Supreme Court of the United States. But at LSATMax, SCOTUS stands for the 6 things that most commonly make a statement especially bold: shoulds, certainties, onlys, the mosts, universals, and selections. Let's get a little abstract and talk about why reading for these bold SCOTUS claims is important. When a statement is very bold, it's hard to prove. Like if I said, all dogs are brown, it would be hard to prove that, right? I'd have to find every dog that has ever or will exist and show that they're all a shade of brown. I can't do that. So if I want to make a persuasive argument, I shouldn't offer a conclusion as sweeping as all dogs are brown. I'm not going to be able to find the premises to prove that point. If we think about an argument as a table again, a statement like all dogs are brown is like putting a 400-pound anvil on the tabletop. A table will need really strong legs to support such a heavy statement. Most legs will buckle under that weight. It's also really easy to disprove strong claims. Again, how would you disprove the statement that all dogs are brown? You could just show me one dog that isn't brown. Even the slightest nudge of a table supporting a heavy anvil will topple over. Because it's so easy to find evidence that disproves a claim like all dogs are brown, these claims aren't very convincing as conclusions. Some LSAT instructors and LSAT prep companies take that idea a step further. They argue that really bold claims are inherently bad. Some go even further than that. They say that bold claims and answer choices should be avoided. Logically, that advice doesn't quite add up, though. Bold claims are neither inherently bad nor good. They're context dependent. For instance, bold claims make for really excellent premises. When assessing an argument's validity, we have to accept all premises as true. So, if I said that every slice of pizza is delicious, I could derive a bunch of persuasive conclusions from that. Therefore, I bet the slices at Gino's Pizzeria will taste pretty good. So, a city with a lot of pizza shops must provide a lot of good places to eat. Clearly, pizza would be an enjoyable lunch option. If we accept the premise that every slice of pizza is delicious, all of the above conclusions seem convincing. Plus, even bold conclusions can be proven convincingly. Take this as an example. Every star in the galaxy is more than 90 million miles, or 145 kilometers, from the Earth's surface. That's another very bold claim. It applies to a lot of stars. It's a very far distance. But astronomers have proven that claim, and they did so like 370 years ago. So rather than thinking of bold SCOTUS claims as good or bad, let's think about them in another way. Let's think about them in terms of leeway. Really bold claims don't offer a lot of leeway. When I say all dogs are brown, it applies to 100% of dogs. That might be good if I offered that statement as a premise. If someone wants to argue with the conclusion I draw from that premise, they don't have any wiggle room to say, oh, what about these dogs? But that bold claim might be bad if I offered it as a conclusion. Currently, I don't have any leeway to defend my conclusion if someone else brings up other dogs that might not be brown. Some statements offer more leeway than others. If I said some dogs are brown, now I have a ton of leeway. And that might be good if that statement is my conclusion. If someone was like, but my dog is literally Clifford the big red dog, whose color is so prominently not brown that it isn't his name, I have a ton of wiggle room to respond. I could just be like, I'm not talking about Clifford the big red dog. I'm talking about different dogs. But if a statement with a lot of leeway is my premise, it might be pretty weak. If I said some dogs are brown, so that dog is definitely brown, it would be pretty easy to object to that statement. Someone could object, what if the dog is black or white or, somewhat improbably but not entirely outside the realm of possibility, big and red? If I only provided evidence that some dogs are brown, others have a lot of leeway to voice valid objections. If you want to synthesize all this information into 2 general rules to follow, try these. 1, an argument's conclusion can't be bolder than its premises. And 2, generally, an argument is unpersuasive if its conclusion is very bold. That first rule is ironclad and inviolable. You may notice it doesn't offer any leeway. The second rule is generally true, but we provided wiggle room in how we wrote it. Typically, a bold conclusion is unpersuasive, but it's still sometimes possible to prove that a bold conclusion is true. How does this play into actually earning points on the LSAT? Remember, 52% of questions in a logical reasoning section will ask us to assess how persuasive an argument is. If we read an argument, distinguish its premises and conclusions, and then notice one of these bold SCOTUS claims in the conclusion, we found a reason why that argument might be unpersuasive. Check the premises. If the premises are less bold than the conclusion, we've identified why the argument is questionable. Other questions will ask us to draw conclusions from a set of facts. On these questions, we should be a little skeptical of answer choices that feature any especially bold SCOTUS claims. It's not that they're automatically wrong, it's just that they'll require equally bold support in the passage. If the passage doesn't provide that bold support, the bold answer choice draws an unpersuasive conclusion and is therefore wrong.